This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com.
Alpha Natural Resources. Consistent with its Running Right process, Alpha is an energy company committed to being a leader in mine safety and an environmental steward. We fuel progress around the world. More information at alphanr.com.
Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, on Midlothian Turnpike in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Taking it to the streets and helping our community. Intelligent Illuminations. We make streetlights smart and give you control, providing secure point-to-point wireless solutions for roadway and area lighting, helping you manage, monitor, and control your streetlights. More information at ilooms.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com.
It's amazing what my students with special needs can accomplish. Their pride is priceless. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome to Senator Mamie Locke, Delegate Stolle, living on different sides of the James River, both from Hampton Roads, a Democrat and a Republican, and equally concerned and discussing and leading a study on recurrent flooding. And really would like to have you tell our viewers about your study. We're having this conversation on a Monday morning when you're going into your study committee. Tell them some, Delegate Stolle, I'll start with you, Senator Locke, about what's the focus of this study on recurrent flooding?
Well, certainly Hampton Roads, all the state of Virginia actually is at risk for recurrent flooding, sea level rise resulting in recurrent flooding, as well as other sources of recurrent flooding. Hampton Roads is second only to New Orleans for assets that are at risk, secondary to storm surge and flooding. And so I think we as a state have to take and focus on what has been happening and prepare, being resilient for those storms that come up. It's always struck me as strange that we can always find billions of dollars to rebuild after a storm, and we can't find money ahead of time to prepare for that storm. So I think that's really what we're about here, is how do we get prepared for those storms before they come in and do that damage.
Senator Locke?
And I think the most important part of what we are looking at is that this doesn't just affect Hampton Roads, even though we're certainly at risk, that it impacts the entire state. If we look back about 40, 50 years ago, when Hurricane Camille struck the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, that storm actually came through and impacted significantly Nelson County in Virginia, where people were killed as a result of storms that hit Nelson County with flooding. So this is impacting the entire state of Virginia. Alexandria is impacted, as well as other parts of the state. So we need to be preventive as we look at the impact that recurrent flooding is having on our Commonwealth, and look at ways to begin to build resources to prevent it from happening, rather than looking at ways after the fact.
We're having this conversation right at the time that Buffalo, New York got almost a historic snowfall, and concern there as it starts to melt about the flooding. And certainly for those of us with connections in Southwest Virginia, that often is a concern when there's a significant snowfall in the mountains or even up in the Shenandoah Valley.
I mean, the weather changes are impacting us greatly. Ups and downs, ups and downs. We're seeing this right now with the weather's last week with lows, and today we're going to be near 80, and tomorrow is going to be significantly different. And as these weather shifts are happening, we have to begin to ask ourselves, as these weather changes are occurring, it's also happening with, the climate changes that we're having. It happens with the sea level rise. So prepare ourselves. That's
Yes.
that's what our study group is doing, prepare ourselves for it.
All right. You both put in study resolutions to look at this, and you have members on there from other parts of the state too that are with you.
Right, so we actually have a subcommittee that's looking at this. We're meeting later on today to do that. And I think it's important that we are looking at all the different sources of flooding. Keith Hodges from Gloucester, Northern Neck, for them, the source of flooding is the outflow ditches along the roads. And so those outflow ditches haven't been maintained for many, many years. And so when they have a rainstorm, they get flooding. So it's a broader look at what's going on to cause the recurrent flooding. Certainly there's ground subsidence, taking water out of the aquifers are all impacting. And then the biggest one is probably aging infrastructure. And we just have to look at all those different things and say, how do we stop the water coming through people's doors?
I'm sure from your living in Virginia Beach, representing them, and living in Hampton and representing Hampton and other areas, that your residents are really concerned as they look at what could happen even to the value of their property that they might be interested in passing on to their children or grandchildren, if that's going to be a concern.
Yeah, I was the mayor of Hampton when Isabel came through, and saw the significant damage, and it was flooding truly, but we had had significant rains that summer, and Isabel happened in September. And a lot of the damage occurred as a result of flooding, but also the result of downed trees. And significant damage happened at Langley and at Fort Monroe as a result of flooding and high waters. So we have to put everything on the table and look at, okay, what is occurring as a result of the high waters, the flooding, and what can we do to begin to stop or to abate all of this from occurring? How do we prevent this from happening? And we don't have a whole lot of time. Time is not on our side with this. So we can't keep putting it off, and individuals will say, well, we have time. No, we don't. Time is not our friend in this issue.
You're mentioning Langley. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you talk about home values. As we've seen the flood insurance costs go up, if somebody's looking to buy a home, they're saying, no longer am I just having to pay for the home, I now have this flood insurance on top of that. And so I think it's important that we get out to all the communities, the information about community rating system for a community. And so localities can take and participate with FEMA to prepare the communities, and that will cause the flood insurance rates to go down, and that will help with property values, because as we see flood insurance go up, property values are going down associated with that.
By your mentioning Langley, that introduces the whole aspect of the significant military presence in both of your areas on opposite sides of the James River. And while you mentioned New Orleans, that we're second in New Orleans, they don't have the military presence that we do. And so that part of whether it's from national security or whether it's just the economics of the Commonwealth, that something needs to be done so that the military doesn't say, well, we should be moving out of some of those regions.
I think that, the military, and then also the port. The port is just an incredible economic engine for the entire state. And if we can't get cargo in and out of the port because we lack the infrastructure, we have recurrent flooding in those areas, then, that impacts the entire state.
And we also have shipyard.
Yes, yes. And a new treasure that's coming to the Commonwealth from the U.S., the Fort Monroe, that really is being touted more and more as a historic place to visit. That's certainly right on in that floodplain. So when the study is finished, session's going to be beginning. do you see, is the study going to be completed this year? Is it going to be an ongoing from your perspective, or tough year economically to get the money that you need to start doing something? So what's your best hopes for the outcome of this as you move from 2014 into 2015?
This is just year one. And today we will be looking at some recommendations of some things that we can probably do this year. And it's a 2-year study, so we'll be moving into next year to looking at some additional things. So this morning we will talk about some recommendations that we can move right into possibly. And then year 2, look at some additional recommendations. But in the long term, it will take some revenue that will begin to allow the Commonwealth to be proactive. What is it that we can do to actually begin to tackle sea level rise?
I would say I agree. This is for year one, and we've actually been just going at this since July. And so we've been trying to absorb an enormous amount of information very quickly. I think that this is very long term. I mean, this is not something we're going to solve this year or next year. And so I see that the committee will continue on after this point. I see one of the big advantages of this is trying to serve as a focal point to bring the localities together, the executive branch together, so that we can go as a unified group to the federal government and get grants to get some of that federal dollars flowing down. And we have to show that, number one, we have a plan, how we move forward with that plan in order to take and get the feds to start bringing in some money. Because certainly, as we talked about with the ports, with the bases, there is federal need as well for us to protect this area.
So you really have gotten this started, so we would tell our viewers that if they had not heard about this study, and if they have some suggestions and opinions, it is not at all too late for them to get involved, even as you move into year 2.
No, not at all. This will be continuing.
Yes. So we encourage our viewers, whether they're in your regions, Virginia Beach and Hampton, or from some of the other areas where there's other flooding problems, or even the western part of the state or the snow-capped mountains area, that they get in touch with their legislators. They can look and see who's on the study committee and contact the 2 of you leading the study, or contact others. So we thank you very much for being on This Week in Richmond and alerting our viewers to something that they maybe didn't know that was being studied, but probably something that's long overdue.
Yes.
So Delegate Stolle, Senator Locke, thank you both for spending time with us this morning on This Week in Richmond.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to have as a guest Ray Davenport, who's the Commissioner, Department of Labor and Industry. In fact, you've been Mr. Commissioner before in both the Warner and the Kane administrations, and now back again in the McAuliffe administration, heading up the Department of Labor and Industry. And just interested in having you tell our viewers about that department and what you do. And I don't know if you want to start with apprenticeship or not, because you're a product of apprenticeship too.
I am a product of apprenticeship, and of course the mission of the Department of Labor and Industry is to make Virginia a better place to work, live, and conduct business. And as you mentioned, apprenticeship is one of our programs. VOSH, or Virginia Occupational Safety and Health, is another program that we do. We have a state plan, which is one of 26 states that we do the predominantly enforcement for occupational safety and health under OSHA, with a performance grant from OSHA, which is in fact both the compliance side of it as well as the consultation side of it. Then we have the boiler and pressure vessel safety program, the labor and employment law program, which includes the enforcement of child labor regulations to prevent children from working in hazardous occupations. Virginia Payment of Wage Act, which we actually perform a venue, if you will, for workers who have disputes with their employers, and find a way that we can settle those disputes, hopefully outside of the court systems, both between the employers and the employees as such. And then, as you mentioned, the Registered Apprenticeship Program, which I am a product of the Registered Apprenticeship Program. I'm a crane operator by trade, and that's been many, many years ago. But I keep it up because I believe in registered apprenticeship. A registered apprenticeship gives an individual lifelong skills, and you mentioned that when I served both within the Warner and Kane administration, when I left as commissioner, I actually went back and picked my tools up after
you did?
21 years.
Yes.
I sure
Okay.
did. And so I was able to do that by keeping the certifications up and keeping the skills honed, and so that was something that I was glad to do. And we encourage employers and we encourage workers on a regular basis to pick up a skill and really invest in a registered apprenticeship based on the fact that it does give workers lifelong skills that they can rely on. It gives employers a skilled workforce that they can train their own. I often ask employers, say, if you had the opportunity to grow your very best employee, take your very best employee and mentor him and clone him, would you do it? And I have not yet had one say, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, right.
So that registered apprenticeship, we believe, is really the way to go.
You know, the one connection that I've had with your department is, gosh, almost 30 years ago, I served a 4-year term on the VOSH board and learned at that time that federal OSHA had certain standards. We could not in Virginia do anything less than that, but that we could, in some instances, if we felt that we wanted to go to a higher standard, we could do that. And it was an interesting time that there was some moves to have even a higher standard on some matters than what federal had. Is it still the case that whatever OSHA says, VOSH, the Virginia Occupational Safety Board, can't take it any lower?
That is the same way that it's held instead today. The phrase that is often used, and that is that we have to be at least as effective as
right. That's the language.
as federal OSHA. So in the event that federal OSHA promulgates a new regulation, VOSH has 6 months to either adopt that regulation in its entirety as identical regulations, or if there's something, as you mentioned, that we find that there's a problem and that is causing a great deal of fatalities or injuries in the workplace, and we believe that we can prevent it and have the ability to promulgate regulations through the Safety and Health Code Board, we can in fact do that as well. That regulatory process takes far longer than
Sure.
Adopting something that comes down from federal OSHA.
You know, as I was looking on your agency website, and we want to make sure we get that up on the screen too, that people can go to the department and they can see, when they look at some of the missions, that one of the ones that I found rather intriguing talked about the cooperative programs, and even mentioned that you could do some consultation services to help employers. Is that because I think the Department of Labor and Industry is clearly not anti-employer.
Absolutely not. And as you point out, the cooperative programs division that we have, and again, that's under the VOSH umbrella, but that's where consultation folks come in. Our compliance officers, as you will, or consultants that will come into an employer's workplace. They will advise them on the standards of occupational safety and health. If it's a machine guarding standard, if it's better to have an engineering control, or if it's better to have some kind of an engineering fix that is out there, they will certainly advise the employer of that and how to go about it. And that's available to small employers, employers that at one location less than 250 employees, or corporate-wide less than 500 employees as far as the consultation program. And we've got a special recognition program under that. It's called SHARP, which is a Safety and Health Achievement Recognition Program, which is the best of the smaller employers that go out and are willing to have exemplary safety and health programs. And then we have what we call the Voluntary Protection Program, which is Virginia's piece, again, at Federal OSHA initially started this. We began it in Virginia in 1996. We only have about 60 employers in the Voluntary Protection Program that has really taken the plunge and went through this, because it is a very strenuous program. I mean, it's a program that both the employers and the employees, if you will, they have to not only talk the talk, but they have to walk the walk. So when they buy into it, you have to have top-down management involvement. You have to have employee involvement from the bottom, and collectively, they make their workplace so much safer. They improve morale of the workplace. They, in fact, reduce workers' compensation costs in many cases. And the employers that have bought into this program and have really experienced what it can do for their workplace, they're our biggest cheerleaders, if you will, of this program. So our cooperative programs on occupational safety and health is alive and well, and we think that that's something that folks, sometimes they don't really look at our department and say, you know, this is really a way for we can really improve ourselves.
Well, that I found very interesting, Ray, that, you know, if I were in one of those businesses, I would want to have that designation.
Oh, absolutely. And we give them a designation where they have a voluntary protection flag to fly. They get a resolution, and for the governor, they usually have it when they actually accomplish the certification, if you will. A proclamation is issued by the governor, and they generally have a luncheon or something for their employees, and we have staff that will go there and make a recognition, because it is a big deal. I mean, part of the program, for example, once they get to the point that they go, we send a team, and the team is made up of our compliance officers, it's made up of our consultants, and it's made up of special government employees, if you will, that are from other sites that have voluntarily committed that they will go in and inspect the worker's work site. So they recognize the best practices in safety, and if there's things that need to be fixed, then also they're recognized, and it's a report that comes back to the commissioner, and the commissioner reviews the whole thing before it's signed off. So it's a very strenuous program, and it's a great achievement.
I know that your department investigates and keeps records on workplace fatalities, and I would think it would be logical that there would be fewer among the ones that really have these flagship programs.
Oh, absolutely. That is absolutely the case. The folks that really make a commitment to occupational safety and health as an investment rather than an expense. They, as I said, they really see the rewards, if you will, from a standpoint of a safer workplace, improved employee morale, and less worker injuries.
Now, also on some of your mission has to do with labor and employment law. I guess that falls in all these areas where you may be helping to advise the governor, advise the General Assembly, advise employers about the labor laws.
There are many of Virginia's, and it's not anything that I could say that is, there's a mismatch, if you will, of Virginia employment labor laws. Probably the two that are best known, as I've mentioned, is the child labor laws that prevent children from working in hazardous employment, and the payment of wage laws. Now there's another group of laws out there, obviously. We have the enforcement of right to work is one of the laws that follows under our enforcement as well. The enforcement of whether or not an employer can legally give a lie detector test, if you will, for an employee that is a prospective employee that's coming to work for them. So there's a whole host of different laws, even, for example, the minimum wage. Virginia has a minimum wage law on its book, which typically has always been tracked whatever the federal minimum wage was.
Ray, we very much appreciate your being on This Week in Richmond, and when we have you back, we're going to say now you talked about 60, and hopefully if it's 6 months or a year before we have a chance to have another time with you, you'd say, David, it's up to 65. It's increasing, and we wish you well and the department well, and we thank you for your service to the Commonwealth.
Thank you so much for having me.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com.
Alpha Natural Resources, a leader in mine safety and an environmental steward.
Haley Buick GMC in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Intelligent Illuminations, helping you manage, monitor, and control your streetlights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.